next up we have Robin, who's going to be talking about a black box privacy analysis of messaging service providers' chat message processing.
All right.
Once the slides are up.
Okay, good afternoon. Yeah,
It's okay, the previous speaker ended a bit early, so it's all right.
it's okay.
Oh, there we go.
It's going to work. Great. A few slides ahead, and I can't see my slides. Well, yeah, just start it again. Give me a second. Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you for the introduction, and yeah, thank you, Pets, for not giving me the last talk of the conference. So yeah, let's talk about our black box privacy analysis of messaging providers and what they do with our messages. So I know it's late, so I'm not going to do a show of hands, but I am still confident that everyone in this messenger track has used at least 3 of these services. And we ask ourselves the question, how can we find out what they are doing on the server side with our messages? So in our privacy setting, yes, we have seen the first one in nearly all the talks here. So we have a personal communication, right? And these 2 communication partners have a reasonable expectation that there's no intermediary that is analyzing the chat, right? So the question is, does this expectation translate to digital text-based communication? So we are texting using some providers that they might want to provide some convenience features like link previews, which are pretty common, or spam, scam, security checks, or things we don't like pretty much surveillance, or they might pursue some other business incentives like advertising or analytics. So to analyze that, we have a scenario where, in the best case, 2 parties are using end-to-end encryption. So in this case, there's no means for the server to look into the message if it's done correctly. Yeah. But that is not always the case because not all messengers use it, and there's some skepticism from the community, so it's still useful to include it in our study. And we've learned on the first day of the conference that there are organizations that want to get rid of end-to-end encryption. So what we are left with essentially without it is transport encryption. So our message is encrypted, but only in transit to the server and from the server to our recipient, which leaves possibility for the server to look into the message and analyze it, right? And we want to find out if and when that happens. And we are faced with 2 challenges. So once, it makes a lot of sense to do code analysis, but that's not always possible because you need the code, right? You need the server-side code and the client-side code, and even if you have it, it's a pretty individual task for each messenger, so there's a scaling issue. And you've seen on the first slide there are a lot of messengers, and we want to cover even more, and we covered even more. So what we instead propose is an analysis of their behavior, so a dynamic analysis, and we are actually chatting using these services with something we can control, because we have a second problem. Basically, you can't see if a message has been read, right? It doesn't leave any traces. But fortunately, it leaves traces if there's some further processing done on this message. For example, you can send URLs. We call it honey URLs because they are unique URLs pointing to our honeypot, and we can see any interaction with this honeypot. So we can see if the messenger which we use to transmit this URL visits it, or if anybody else visits it, and we know who has to have leaked it in the first place. Another idea is to use email addresses, unique email addresses, so you can observe if you get spam or other mail to this new, fresh, unique email address. On top of that, we can add traffic analysis, so we can use a browser extension for web-based messaging, or the app analyzer by Koch and others to look into app traffic, right? And we did all that, we combined it into this Honey Messages framework, which we open source, check it out. You might want to use it for similar experiments or collaborate. And you can use it to monitor such URLs for text-based communications. And you can use it to manage these experiments. So what we actually did is we used a few researchers, and they had to conduct semi-automatic, semi-manual, actually, chats using a bunch of messengers. So we created 2 accounts, which we control, and we started the chat, which we also control, and we use the framework to get text, which we have to transmit. We chatted, closed the chat, and never opened it again, right? And what happens then is, what the messenger does, it communicates with its server, and I already mentioned we have our monitoring going on there, but we have 2-sided monitoring. So what is also very important, we can see what happens with these URLs. Do we get requests to our honeypot or to our email addresses? And we can observe that too, right? So we did that. We open sourced this framework, which we built, and we conducted the largest black box messenger analysis study, where we looked at over 100 different services, including 36 messaging apps and 69 web-based messengers, so websites with messaging capabilities. And the result is, unfortunately, there's no privacy guarantee in online messaging. As for at least a third, we've seen that they do processing of our messages, because if they can analyze parts of the message from the server side, it's an indicator that they can do what they want. So what we have seen, if you transmit a URL in the chat, you may receive requests to it, which is okay, understandable if they are providing link previews, but we also looked at these link previews, and we've seen that they are requesting far more resources than necessary for what they are showing us. Second, we've seen that after the chat is closed, and remember, we never reopen it again, so there's no reason to analyze the message further, you can receive requests to this Honey page up to a month after the chat. And we've also seen recurrent visits where they are trying to test the page each week for unknown reasons. And we've seen that they are crawling the page, so they are going in depth and seeing what else is linked on the page. And to illustrate that, I've brought you 2 interesting case studies. So I included LinkedIn because it was the only service that actually crawled the page. So crawling, if you're not familiar, means you have this Honey page. Yeah, it has a lot of interesting resources on it, images and stuff and like that, but also links to other Honey pages, which you also control, and we can observe what happens, right? So LinkedIn comes, visits it, and visits also all the links on it. And then they show a specialized backend, meaning that they were one of a few messengers that actually executed JavaScript, which is nice for us because we can do some JavaScript fingerprinting. And this fingerprinting showed that there were 15 different fingerprints, so basically 15 different server-side request systems. And also they sent us their user agent, including Chrome, in very old versions, like so old that there are open exploits available for it, which all in all resulted in 80 requests just by sending one URL in a direct message to another party, which is, yeah, kind of crazy. I brought another example, Steam, because it's the only messenger that went to our page really, really late. So we chatted, closed the chat again, yeah, and never opened it again. And after a month, they were still coming and probing our site. And what was curious is that they used this user agent indicating another company called Expanse, and they are telling us that they are scanning IPv4 addresses, basically. But that doesn't make sense because all these requests only happen for Steam and our Steam experiments alone and no others, so it can't be a random probe. So we still cannot say why they are doing this. But what we can also say is that there are strong connections between messengers based on their network setup. So on the left side of this Sankey diagram, we have ICQ, VKontakte, yeah, Russia-based messengers. And I say Russia-based not because I've looked it up, but because we can see they all belong to an autonomous system based in Russia belonging to VKontakte. So it might be pretty confusing or even surprising for users that all of these messengers, TamTam, OK, VKontakte, ICQ, partially communicate using the same IP addresses, which is a very strong indicator that they are sharing some infrastructure. And also they are even partially telling you that they are doing this with their user agent. So OK and TamTam shared some user agents, so they said, hey, we are the same bot. Right. And to conclude, we have seen that, unfortunately, some services do stuff with our data in the chats based on the URLs we send, and some show pretty intrusive behavior, so they do much more than they need to. What I can fortunately say is that we have not yet received any mails to our unique email addresses. So yeah, that some heads nod, so that was probably a question you wanted to ask. And yeah, that's it. Check out the framework and come to me after the talk. Thank you.
We have a question down here. Oh, okay, also over there. Sure, go ahead.
Did you make sure that the website was not reachable over the IP address, that you actually have to go to a certain subpage? Because, I mean, I'm also running websites and I never shared the link anywhere. And I also get this Palo Alto network and we're scanning you just because it's on the index page.
That is funny. No, they are not available. They are unique subdomains of our page. So we made sure that it's not just the path that is random. And it doesn't make sense that Palo Alto only visits the Steam subdomains. Yeah, they are random and generated for each experiment, and we are actually conducting like 5 or 6 experiments for each messenger. So we are pretty confident that this has to do with Steam.
Did you have a table in the paper that basically says in which messengers you can deactivate this? Because I remember that in some messengers you had like a sliding button where you can basically say, I don't want the link previews.
Yeah, great question. No, as in the previous talks, we used the default configuration, right? Unless otherwise it would blow up the setup. But yeah, I would probably do it if I was using these services. Thank you.
Hi, thanks for the nice talk. I see that you're using the server opening URLs as proxy for the server actually reading the message. How did you come up with this proxy, and have you thought about other proxies? As in, do you know of another way to check if the server actually reads the message besides checking if the server opens the links that you're sending?
So if you say proxy, you mean like an indicator, right?
Yeah. Yes,
yeah,
yes.
Yeah. That is like the question, what kind of honey tokens? I would say honey tokens you can use. URLs work the best. Yeah, emails, we tried emails. Related work previously has used credit card information, but everything doesn't work so well. So automated tasks work best for emails. So it's the best we currently have, unless you have a good idea. So let's get into contact. Yeah, maybe you could check IPs and look for DNS resolve things, but yeah, it's more difficult. Another question, yeah.
Yeah, that would have been my question, whether you also checked whether there are DNS requests to your unique subdomains. Maybe if they are in your own DNS zone, you can check this and then have even less false negatives.
Yeah, thank you. No, this is not part of the study. I mean, we checked a bit, but it was not so interesting.
Okay, I have a question.
Sure.
Wouldn't it be great if you made a giant battery of remote exploits and got all those services to open websites and like just popped all those boxes that were vulnerable? And this is a joke, but
okay.
The question is, did you do a like serious analysis, complete analysis of the actual vulnerability of the servers that are opening the web pages, and can those vulnerabilities be exploited remotely in order to gain privileged access to like LinkedIn servers? Or
interesting question. So I might hijack that question. So the first part. So as part of our study, we also sent, I can't say malware pages, but we created pages hosting things that look like malware. So VirusTotal flags it. But we made sure it can't do anything. It's like C programs without a body are flagged. And we wanted to see if they show some visual indicators in the chat, which might warrant that they are processing our page, but none did. And we've also sent links which are on public block lists, which actually worked. So Twitter didn't allow us to send a message where a publicly blocklisted link was inside. And so back to your question. So there were only 4 messengers that executed JavaScript, which would make it pretty difficult to actually attack the server-side browsers they are using. Yeah. And I might have some ethical problems. I don't know, but good idea.
the question was phrased in an intentionally provocative way.
Oh, yeah,
So
yeah.
I understand the ethical limitations there for sure. Okay, so let's thank our speaker one last time.